Hello, this is Kristen again, continuing the casual conversation about alcohol problems. And I wanted to elaborate a little bit further and share another little, kind of like a little chart that kind of shows how things work when someone's struggling with alcohol use. And just as a reminder, this is what I shared in the last couple of videos. Remember, alcoholism or alcohol use disorder, it's a progressive problem. It will get worse over time if the person continues to put alcohol into their body. And in this time period on the journey, the person is not yet physically dependent, but they're having problems and struggles with alcohol use, and they're having trouble staying away from it if they try. But in this time period, they're able to quit drinking without having withdrawal symptoms. And then eventually, over time, there is a threshold within everyone, and eventually their body changes in such a way that they become physically dependent on alcohol. And in this time frame of the journey, they need to be in a controlled medical environment in order to detox, in order to stop drinking, because the withdrawal symptoms can be fatal. So I wanted to share this little chart that I use a lot of times with clients to kind of go over with them and see if they're in agreement that it is like this. It always is. So if we have like the idea that over the course of this progression of this problem, over the course of years maybe, the person tends to go on a kind of a cycle at some point where the drinking becomes problematic enough where the person becomes aware that it's a problem for them, because perhaps within relationships there's complaints about it, or perhaps there was legal trouble caused by the drunkenness, things like that. And so this little chart shows how, let me get a pointer here, how you might start off kind of low on this consumption, like say there's zero consumption of alcohol, and then maybe you've got 1 or 2 drinks a night or something like that. It's just kind of low drinking. But the person who's been drinking for a long time and they're very attached to it and they're using it regularly and they've had to increase how much they use to get the same effects, now it starts to get into a realm where there's quite a bit being used, quite a bit of impairment taking place, and then there's always some kind of, whether it's a disaster or it's a problem, or there was like one night where things went sideways and people were offended, or you were embarrassed, or you lost your keys, or you lost your cell phone, and there's a problem. And this problem then alerts the person to the idea, wait a second, my drunkenness caused this thing that I don't like, that has affected me badly. Maybe drinking's the problem. Let me scale back my use. So they come back over here to 0, or perhaps they just reduce, right? And when they're on this part of the journey, they're able to stop if they want. So they might say, oh, I'm going to take a break. I got to get this under some kind of control again, because I don't want this to happen again. And I don't want those people complaining anymore about this. So I'm gonna and these words just came to me. I'm going to be good. I hear this a lot. And you can start to see how the person struggling with alcohol starts to view themselves as someone who's either doing good or doing bad, being innocent or being guilty. And they associate being good with controlling their alcohol intake and not getting, too drunk or something. This is not an accurate way of seeing the situation. This isn't about good and bad. And because why isn't it about good and bad? Would it be about good and bad if you had any other disease like cancer or something? would you be being bad if you had more symptoms, or would you be being bad if it was causing the cancer diagnosis or the disease was causing problems in your life? Would that be your fault and then you're bad? No, of course not. And with this process, it's the same thing. This is not about, you're a bad person because you couldn't get your drinking under control, or you're a bad person because you picked it up again. And unfortunately in our society, people who don't understand how this works in the mind and body, they will say things like, well, you're the one who made the choice to pick it up again, and in anger or frustration with the situation. And then it can kind of reinforce this idea of being good or being bad. But during this time period, you're able to put it down completely for whatever period of time that you do, and then the thought starts to occur as you get time away from whatever the problem was, the disaster or the escalation of conflicts or whatever. Time goes by, you kind of forget how bad it was. You kind of forget why you're not drinking, and you start to reason. You feel good. You're feeling good. You're more clear. Things are going well again with relationships and work and things like that. You've pieced things back together maybe, and you feel good. So it seems like you feel like you could probably have a drink if you want. And that's a common pattern. And then we're back here, and then it starts up again. And like I said in the other videos, once you pick it up, don't think you can go back over here where it was 1 or 2. You're past that stage. You're over here now. So in a very short time, you will now be over here somewhere, and there will be problems, because a human being, a person in a body whose mind has been taken from them and they're impaired and they don't have good judgment anymore, and actually they're not even themselves, and they might even be blackout drunk, that's going to cause some problems because you're going to do things you would never do, and things like that. Or you could just be vulnerable. If you're not in control of your body, others can target you and take advantage. So now, when you're in this stage, kind of like later stage of this process, when you hit the disaster, you hit the problem, you're not going to be able to stop drinking. You're not going to be able to stop drinking because the withdrawal symptoms are too severe. And so the best you can do is come back over here somewhere. And then you're just kind of in this unfortunate predicament where you're just trying to negotiate with your body, staying out of withdrawal symptoms. So this just keeps happening then. When you're over here, if you don't go detox and get, medically supervised while you do that, and you're just reducing, the problems are going to happen again, guaranteed. It's a guarantee. There's only one way to get off of this thing that's going to happen, and that would be to get off this road, and it would be to medically detox, as unpleasant as that can be. And I know that it can be very unpleasant, but it's okay. It's only going to be, however many days for you, and it's worth it because it's actually the only solution. Again, when you reduce, even in that late stage, when you reduce, there's going to be a feeling better, more energized, more clear in the mind. Not as clear as you're going to be if you stop drinking, of course, but you're clearer and you feel more positive, you feel more hopeful, but you're still drinking. And a lot of times what I've noticed, there's a pattern of thinking. Again, it's kind of the same with everybody. People tend to say they're looking at their lives, and there's good things in their lives, or there's goals they have for their life, and they want to maintain that, or they want to go after that. And now that they've reduced, and they're telling themselves, oh, okay, good, it's like relief. Now I'm going to put my life back together because I'm back here at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever I need to do, just so I'm not in withdrawal. Whether it's a pet or a job or a thought that you have an obligation to something, a responsibility. This notion that you can maintain your life while you're drinking still, even at a much reduced level, it's really one of the delusions of this process. It's not true. There isn't a way, because as you're drinking, even if you're saying, well, no, this time I'm gonna, okay, it's always gonna be the same. You might for a time be able to maintain just kind of like keeping yourself out of withdrawal. You might even start to think that you can actually taper off slowly. I have not seen that possible with people. They're still progressing in this direction with their body, because like I said, alcohol affects every system of the body. It's impacting your health every day that you put that literal poison into your body. Your body's doing its best to process that and deal with that, but you are still moving in the direction of complete dysfunction, a greater amount of drinking, and then potential death if you're drinking at all. Okay? And again, this is not, you've done nothing wrong in a sense. I'm just going to say that. This isn't about you being guilty of something. This is about, at some point in your life, you very innocently started to use alcohol because it's so effective at calming your nervous system, causing you to not feel emotional pain because it's an anesthetic, right? That wasn't something you did in, guiltiness. There wasn't anything bad in that. You were trying to help yourself. So everyone starts off like that, really. And they just innocently didn't understand what it means down the road and how this thing very slowly evolves into this parasitic process that takes over your way of thinking about it, that kind of sculpts this whole relationship with alcohol over time. You didn't know it was going to do this. You didn't know it was going to make changes in literally your personality. So there's nothing, as much as people could be nasty and mean about it, you've got to forgive yourself for anything that went wrong when you were doing this. You essentially are a victim of this process or this disease, and the only way to overcome it or survive it or get your life back is to remove alcohol from your life, ending that relationship, not putting it in no matter what. Especially if you're, over here or over here. So I think I'll end there, and thank you for listening. I hope some of this is just helpful to give some clarity and to hopefully provide you with some kind of relief, and hopefully hope that with this information you can make decisions that are actually going to work in the future, as opposed to choices you've been making so far based on incorrect thinking that came out of the process itself. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.